of you will know, Brian Gerrish has been very involved over the last few years in investigating not only the Common Purpose organization, which seems to have strange little tendrils just about everywhere, but also, of course, the disappearance of children being taken unnecessarily into care, strange things going on, which he's been helping to expose in his newspaper, the UK Column. He is a retired naval officer and has, I think, a true sense of what you could call patriotism. And in his travels, he's come up against what he sees as evil. And what we're going to hear about this morning is, what is the nature of evil, and is this evil abroad in our very own country, and what can we do about it? So please give a massive hand to Mr. Brian Gerrish.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Right, good morning everybody. Usual problem, I can see about 3 of you in the front, so either there's 3 people in the room, or we've got a few more. Are there more? Yeah. Okay, all right, excellent. Well, thank you very much for coming. Ian Crane and his team have done an absolutely brilliant job, I think, and I was fascinated last night to see how many new hands went up. So well done for all the new people that have come. I'm sure you'll have a great time, and the important thing for me is that we all learn from each other. So it's not just the people speaking on the stage, it's also what you hear from people in the audience. Now, I've been warned severely that I've got to stay within the box. I never thought I'd hear Ian Crane say that, but he said I've got to stay inside the box. And he's also given me a severe time warning. So I've got to be really careful. I've only got an hour, and that's difficult because I've got quite a lot of stuff that I'd like to get through. Okay, now the subject is political ponerology, and if you've looked that up, because I had to initially, it's basically the science of evil. And I just came to the conclusion in my travels, what I was looking at, discovering that there was something very nasty going on, and it seemed to make sense to me it was evil. So I've also done some homework on this, and today I'm going to take you through what I think I've learnt, and perhaps to give you a bit about what we can do to confront it. Now, for those of you who came in early, I was having problems with the computer. It's pretty interesting. Every time I've gone to a talk, and I'm getting up to, well, I don't know what it is, it's over 100 talks altogether, I get a problem with the GPS system. I've got witnesses to prove this. So we're going somewhere, and as you get close to the venue, it starts playing up. My computer played up today, and then at one point, the slide changed, and who came up? Did anybody see it? Yeah, it went from this one to one of a number of slides, and the slide that came up was the devil. You explain that to me, I don't know. Okay. Why am I here? A lot of people have said to me, we don't know much about you, and how did you get into this? Most people know I was an ex-naval officer. Some people are querying that, and I'm going to have to put some stuff up on the site and a few pictures to try and prove that I am who I say I am. But when you do that, then you get attacked because you must be part of the Admiralty, and for people starting to look at the free man stuff and Admiralty law, then apparently I'm upholding it. But of course I'm also BMP, because I do talk to BMP audiences. I'm Al-Qaeda, because I talk to Muslims. I have a problem with the beard, which has been there for some years actually. It's a turban I can manage. So one of the big problems is, thank you Ian, that we're in boxes. Everybody tries to put us in boxes. And what did I choose to wear today? Well, I decided, because you're obviously going to be an upmarket audience, I was going to be in a suit. But when I went to Llangollen up in North Wales, I was gently advised by the person organising it was better if I didn't wear a suit. So you've got to be careful, but today I thought I'd wear the suit, so I hope that's all right. I woke up at 3:10 one morning. I can't remember how many years ago. I'm going to say about 9 or 10 years, and my head was just full of look at the papers. Now, I knew the papers weren't the daily papers. They were papers to do with a project, building little wooden boats and repairing them to help young people get back into skills training. I went upstairs, got out of bed, put my dressing gown on, went into my little office, and I didn't know what I was looking for, so I just had the first file, and I'm flicking through it. It's a very strange experience. What are you doing? Go back to bed. But I stayed with it, and about an hour later, I turned over a page, and with hindsight, what I was looking at was an email, and it showed me that Plymouth City Council and the local university and some other people had been working against that project. It just sort of leapt off the page. And from that day onwards, my life wasn't my own. So strangers would come up to me and say, we've got some information for you. I don't know why I'm telling you this. I want to give you this information. And it went on for days. I would sometimes get 12 calls starting about 8 o'clock in the morning. The mobile phone would ring, the landline would ring, mobile phone, landline. That would go on, information. And it just grew. And then I started to experience some strange things, like I'd walk into a room full of people in Plymouth, and I'm looking at faces and people look scared of me, and I'm not a big bloke, so I couldn't quite understand that. And that led a journey to discovering an organisation called Common Purpose, which I'm very, very wary of, and I've done a lot of talks on that. But in trying to fight it, we started to be given things. So I had people who came to join me. We didn't have anything. Then we said, well, we'd quite like an office. Then a man said, well, I'll underwrite that office for a few months. So we moved in, there was nothing. Then we were given a photocopier, then we were given computers. And more or less anything we've needed within reason has been given to us. I even had a man turn up on my doorstep, and this was in the very early days, he was carrying an overhead projector. And I said, what's that for? And he said, well, you'll need it because you'll be giving talks. And I said, will I? And he said, yes. So I said, well, come on in. And he said, no, you take that and I'll go and get the screen. This is true, absolutely true. And that was the projector, the overhead projector. I did my first talk, which was in a Women's Institute hall where I live, and there were 17 people. And I gave a very rough presentation on what I was seeing. And then basically, I couldn't get rid of them. So I was saying, I've only paid for the hall till 10:30, and it's 11, it's 11:30, it's 11:45. And that was the start of it. Now, I can't explain all of this, but I do believe that there are things going on, there are powers at work much greater than we are. So perhaps we can have a look at a bit of this. I've got to go quickly, because otherwise I'm going to run out of time. Now, if you want to find out the information on evil, you've got to go to a book somewhere. And I've just put a few down that you might like to look at. For me, I've put the Bible at the top, but I'll say to you, you've got to be careful which Bible. If you don't know there's a difference, that's the first place you're going to research. You're going to look at religious texts. The book of Enoch's a very interesting one because he specifically wrote about evil. But you might like to look at other books, the Torah or the Quran. And I suggest you have a look at the Talmud if you've never come across that, because that's a very, very interesting book. And then there are works where other authors have written. The Origins of Evil is particularly interesting. That's linked in with Enoch. Political Ponerology, which is the man that I've done most of this talk on. Is this going to work? Yeah, it's this one here on the left. And there's a very good lady called Laura Jadzik who's written a number of books, but if you look at 9/11, The Ultimate Truth, she starts talking about people. And if you want a different read, go down to this one. It's 2 books, actually. This Present Darkness and Piercing the Darkness. Now, that 2-volume book was given to me, and I've never read anything like it. And I'm not going to tell you what it's about. You just have to do it. But it was quite a phenomenal book, and it made me think. So what's evil? Well, here's the definition: bad, harmful, which is all pretty easy. It can be also something you say, or something you do, or something how you look. But we're pretty used to the word, and we use it quite casually, but it means something not very nice. And then if we go a step further, we could say that this is something around us, it's something spiritual, and there's a bad person out there, a bad being. And we might call that being the devil, or we might call him Satan. But we're suggesting that in our realm, we may not be able to see it, but there is a force operating which is certainly not good. And many people would suggest that that force is a dark spiritual force. I was interested to see down here that it also means a junior legal counsel. Are there any in the room? I bet they don't say yes. But isn't that fascinating? Because in our work at the moment, we're finding some big problems within the legal system and the judiciary. It's very corrupt, and there's some very nasty things going on. Can I just try a very quick experiment? Is there anybody who's done anything evil in this room? Well, there's some brave people, actually. Would you come and tell us about it? Right, one person in the front, no names, has said no. She doesn't want to tell us about it. Now, this is the interesting thing. We've all done bad things, and some people might call that evil, but we don't like admitting it to other people. So we have our dark little secrets where we took the last piece of cake or we did whatever it was, but we don't like admitting it to other people. I'm going to come back on that, so just leave that little bit in your head. Now, what's the devil look like? Well, this is the slide that popped up mysteriously while I was waiting, and I was pretty annoyed because that was going to be a surprise. So this is from Red Ice Creations. I nicked it. I hope they don't mind. That was my evil act, to nick the devil. But some people think that this is the devil, the Baphomet, the goat-type image. And there's a whole heap of this stuff, and I'm not going to take you into that because I want to go in a slightly different direction. But this is a little quote from the Bible, which is quite interesting, that Satan cannot lie because there's no truth in him. And I just want you to remember that when you start to see the way people are behaving around us, because truth is getting stripped away pretty quickly. Now, we can talk about spiritual things, and we can talk about evil inside people, bad things. And these are some definitions which we need just to have a look at, because if you go back to read any of the books, you'll find that these terms are mentioned. So anything to do with patho is to do with disease. So pathogens, an agent causing a disease. Pathology, the science. Pathocracy, a state of disease. And then within society, you've all heard of it, we've got the sociopath, the troublemakers, the antisocial people. And when that condition gets worse, and I'm not pretending to be a psychologist, we're dealing basic, simple things, we know that people can get extreme. But if I say psychopath, a lot of you will think, Hannibal Lecter. But that's really, really extreme. So before we get to Hannibal, there are all sorts of people who classify as psychopaths, but they're not easy to identify. And then there's another condition, which is the narcissistic personality, where they love themselves. And there's a lot of that going on at the moment, certainly helped by the media industry and the TV, and magazines and beautiful models where all their defects have been sprayed out. And then they spend millions on cosmetic surgery because their ego is so big they can't allow themselves to age naturally. Some of us don't, of course. Now, sorry, I'm just checking you're awake. Right, the last one there is the important one, because if your narcissistic personality gets too big, it's actually a personality disorder. And that means that your whole psyche starts to change. You're all getting worried now. And that can be really bad for you. It can be bad for other people around you. But for others looking at you, it can be really helpful because they can work on you if you've got NPD. So it's not New York Police Department, it's narcissistic personality disorder. So where did all this trouble come from? Well, if you go to a biblical stance, you would come back to fallen angels. You would come back to beings coming down to earth, and they brought bad stuff with them. Some call them fallen angels. Some talk about the watchers, the beings that looked at people. Some talk about the Nephilim, the product of the watchers. And although the Bible gives some detail, the book of Enoch starts to actually name, sorry, is this going to work? Battery's running out a bit. Is actually naming them. And it says that the important thing is that these angels or beings came and they took women as wives. I'm sorry about that, girls, but the attractive ones they took. And then, according to the biblical story, they bred with women and that created other beings. And that's one root for the fact that whatever we are, it got corrupted somehow. But Enoch also teaches that these beings taught us all the wrong things. They taught us about makeup and alluring people and weapons of war. I'll leave you to read it, but this is one route. So I'm just getting ideas for you to think about at this stage. Now, I want to take you into the Garden of Eden. I hope it's going to work. Yes, isn't it? That was it. That was evil at work. And that's what we're filling our children full of. Who created that? Man did. Men, sitting in rooms somewhere. And this is the state that we've got to. I'm sorry to do it to you, but we had a paradise. We've still got a paradise, but something really nasty is at work. And if we let it happen, we're in big trouble. So you've watched a 3-minute clip of ready available game, well, a mixture of them, which we pulled off the internet. And this is what's now being fed to the children, and then we're surprised that we're starting to see very strange things happen. So I just needed to give you a glimpse of what I regard as evil at work, because whoever's minds created this and backed it and financed it, These are very dangerous people. Another mind created this, readily available on the internet. So you've got no parental controls to see this stuff. So somebody here sat down, thought this one out, and clearly they don't think like I do, and I suspect they don't think like you do. And so we're not surprised that this little girl got it confused, because she's written her little card, if this one works. It's probably not. No, okay. Well, basically, instead of saying Santa, she said Satan. And that was off a funny media blog site. But I'm not surprised that the girl's confused. Christmas is interesting. I've done all the business, but I became uncomfortable at one stage with the quantity of presents. It just gave me an uncomfortable feeling. And eventually, as a family, we started to say, hey, we're going to unwind Christmas. We'd exchange some presents, but just little presents. And all of a sudden, it began to calm down. So it took a lot of persuasion, because some of the family were upset. They thought we were being odd and strange. And if you want to delve into it a bit more, if you go and look at the trees covered in baubles, it's all in the Bible, Babylonian worship. So what you're actually doing is bringing dark stuff into your home, but it's covered in coloured lights, and I like Christmas trees. This is another example of the product, a little goth girl, goth stuff, very popular with a lot of the youngsters, very dark, tends to mix in with very dark side, and some would say with sadomasochistic stuff. So it's all being pumped into society. And the rest of it we can see on our TV screens every day. War, famine, poverty, it's all there right in front of our eyes, and it's been caused. Who's caused it? God? But he doesn't build the armaments factories. He doesn't promote the war. So maybe we've got to start looking somewhere else for the root of the problem and the evil. This is a particularly disgusting little slide, which just popped out. I don't have to say too much, but if you look at this girl here, I'm going to say to you, this is learnt behaviour. I think she's been looking at films she shouldn't have been. But somebody put this up on a website, a web blog, freely available to people. And this is the state we have got ourselves into. Now, if we look at it in a bit more detail, it's really annoying because the print here. If I just want to bring you down this side, the wiggly line, think of it as a snake. We are seeing morality in the country pulled down, basically. And it's being pulled down by a steady progression of things: bad language, promiscuity, greed is good, attacking Christianity, undermining authority, confusing sexuality, pornography, break up the family, steal the children. That's how far we've got. We've got the paedophilia, and I can tell you in the background the bestiality's there, because that is starting to be pushed in other countries. Because somebody's running a program at the moment to pull down our morality in the papers, on the TV, in films. Now, in parallel, if we go over to here, as the morality degrades, so the evil, if you like, starts to grow. And the first thing that falls is truth. We talk about relative stuff, not black and white. It's wrong to steal. It's always wrong to steal. But there may be mitigating circumstances. That's truth. Where relativism says, well, it may be okay to steal in some circumstances. It nips away at things. So we then get our antisocial behavior, we get aggression, we get the ego coming up, we get to a stage where lies are lies are truth. We get the sociopath, the abnormal becomes normal, we get the psychopath appearing, and then dissent of what they're doing equates to terrorism. That's what Ian mentioned in the paper yesterday. And then compassion is weakness. So now we can torture people, which of course is happening in this country, approved by Mr. Miliband. And then at the bottom, we've reached do as thou wilt on one side, do what you want to do. And on the other side, we've got people who are prepared to kill the useless eaters. That is satanic law for anybody and everybody to do just as they please. That's satanic law. So what we are experiencing is a degrading into satanic law. And the trouble is that as our morality is pulled down, so we find it very difficult to recognize people who are abnormal. Whereas before they used to stand out in a crowd, now we're so confused about the behavior that we can't recognize people who are abnormal. And that's where we are in our society at the moment. Now, we all like to think we can recognize the bad guys. I keep this picture because what a bunch of people they look like. And I have my joke because I say the one in the middle is not Obama. He's got that little black tash, but he's not Obama. They haven't seen the poster, doesn't matter. But they're not always, the bad guys don't always look like that. Here is a mass murderer, Stalin and his secret police chief, but look at them. They're in their country house. They're sat outside in the garden having tea. Svetlana, the little girl, she's got an interesting expression on her face, but these are nice people. But while they were sat in the garden, they were planning the murder of millions of people. Not only planning it, they were doing it to quotas. Kids aren't being taught about this in school. Why? Because this is truth. Now, this man understood the problem. I'll read it because I know the print's slow. The greatest evil is not done in those sordid dens of evil that Dickens loved to paint, but is conceived and ordered, moved, seconded, carried and minuted in clear, carpeted, warmed, well-lighted offices by quiet men with white collars and cut fingernails and smooth-shaven cheeks who do not need to raise their voices. I think that's a pretty astute comment. And this is the sort of building that they're talking about. Portcullis House. Has anybody seen it in London? It's absolutely evil building. One lady said to me, I think it looks like a crematorium because it's got 6 of those funny chimney things on there. But this is now the new seat of power built next to Parliament. And if you have the pleasure of going in there, you go through airport-type security and all around a policeman with submachine guns. It's quite interesting because this is welcome to democratic Britain in 2010. So this is an office and it's full of wonderful people. And this is a picture of a few of them, and they do look nice. I was really worried, actually, because I had a choice of picking up a red tie. I've got the blue shirt on. All I needed was the red tie, and I'd be on the top row. But look at Gordon. In this picture, he's even had a bath and combed his hair. And there's Tony and Mandelson. And my question is, did they or didn't they? And Bush, he's a very nice man. And look, at the bottom there's Davy Cameron, and he's cuddling the little puppy. And we've got Nicholas Clegg. He's very nice. And then there's Obama, and he's a very nice man as well, and we can see he's smiling. Now, this is a terrible slide. I didn't know how to do it. But the narcissistic personality, the person who loves themselves, they're a product of their culture and civilization. They get malignant, so they get false, fictitious identities coming around them. These are the people who love themselves. They can't tolerate criticism. Does that sound familiar? The narcissistic leader fosters and encourages a personality cult with the hallmarks of an institutional religion. So are we seeing political parties almost becoming religious in their fervour for the leader? I think that's true. They can take it so far that it becomes sort of inverted Jesus. They're going to save the nation and they're going to sacrifice themselves to do it. Well, of course, they're not, because they prefer to be paid huge amounts of money and be glorified in the media. So everything's turned on its head. They get involved in decadence, and then they get involved in the evil. Narcissistic leadership is about theatre. It's not about life, because it's all their view of what the world is, not what the reality is. And basically, it's nihilistic, because it destroys everything. The person believes what they're doing is right, they're leading the country to a new utopia, but that utopia is in their mind, it's a fiction of their imagination. So because it's not real, as they create their utopia, what they're actually doing is destroying things, but they can't see it. Can't spend any longer. Oh, look, it's a narcissist. Okay? Now, this man has lied, and he has been responsible for the deaths of, I believe, millions of people. Servicemen, Iraqis, children. He's a war criminal, as far as I'm concerned. He's still walking the streets. He's narcissistic. He loves himself. And the picture on the right is very telling. I don't give a damn about all the people who've died as a result of my crass decisions. I'm in the sunshine. And my wife pointed out very astutely, he needs a bigger bra. Well, here we have it. Do I need to say more? Minister for Europe, well, they must be good people. Common purpose leader, this man specially selected to be an example leader to children. He was involved with the head of European Affairs, the BBC, and he's an Anglican vicar. Brilliant, isn't it? What a man to represent us. Is it any wonder we're in this state? Is it? Now, the thing about the MPD people is they're programmable. If you've got somebody who's really suffering from this narcissistic personality, if you start to put them in the right environment, you can play around with their minds more easily than you can somebody who's solidly rooted in normality. And that is why I believe that the Conservatives are keen to go for psychometric testing, because they can choose the people who are going to come on board. Common Purpose is doing it. They screen for people. Children are being given questionnaires. And if they get the wrong answers, social services can get involved. So we are constantly now seeing the state trying to work out our personality type. Why do politicians all look the same? Because they've been chosen for their personality traits. Now, we get a problem because as society and morality declines and we can't see the abnormal people, the psychopaths have an advantage. I'm not talking all about the Hannibal Lecterns. I'm talking about a gradual grading of these people. They haven't got any conscience, so they don't care what you think, what I think. They're abnormal, but they believe they're normal and we're not. Anybody who reacts against them is a threat. And that's why you're now seeing this government and other governments starting to call anybody who stands up and challenges them a domestic terrorist, an extremist, mental health problems. They recognize each other. And if they can recognize each other, they can recruit each other. If you run a business and you're keen on golf and you've got 3 candidates that are identical and equally good, and one's good at golf, which one are you going to pick? Psychopaths do the same. When they get to a ruthless stage, they're going to kill or torture without any regret. They may be the sort that likes other people to do the dirty work, or they might enjoy doing it themselves, like Beera, the man I just showed you with Stalin. He enjoyed it. The trouble is, we're all nice. And because we've now got a confusion of morality in society, we can't see the bad guys. So, well, can we? If we look closer, we can see that Gordon Brown isn't really like that. He's like that. This is the reality of these people. There's something not very nice. A warmonger, that's all we need to say with that man. Now, David Cameron, these are different, maybe different people. Because here he is with a puppy, here he is learning to count. Yeah? Do I think he's a bad person? Not sure. I think he's silly. And I think his strings are pulled by much more powerful people. Psychopaths are pulling his strings. Narcissistic, maybe. Nick Clegg, well, lovely boy. He's still a lovely boy. So I think he's having his strings pulled. And this is the danger, that we can have the psychopaths hidden and they are pulling the strings of people who are affecting our lives. And what's Obama like? Well, underneath the smile, there's another man lurking, but he's having his strings pulled. So we've got to think about the people who are now controlling us. Are they normal? No, they're not. And we can tell it pretty easily when we know what signals to look for. Who's pulling the strings? The bankers, without a doubt. And somebody coined the phrase banksters, and I like it. It's a combination of bankers and gangsters. And here is one of the most powerful financial men in the world running an institution which is controlling or partly controlling the whole world's money supply. Is he a nice man? I don't think so. Is he a psychopath? If he is, we've got a big problem. We know about this. We're closer to home. Sarkozy wants a fundamental rethink of capitalism. Is he a psychopath? I think he could well be. Communist, certainly. Marxist, definitely. Now, the Protocols of Zion is something we're not supposed to talk about because it raises sensitivities, and I don't know how many people have seen it. You need to go on the internet and have a look at it. Another really bad slide. I'm going to read it very quickly. Political freedom is an idea but not a fact. The idea one must know how to apply whenever it appears necessary with this bait of an idea to attract the masses of the people to one's party for the purpose of crushing another who is in authority. The task is rendered easier if the opponent has himself been infected with the idea of freedom, so-called liberalism, and for the sake of an idea is willing to yield some of his power. It is precisely here that the triumph of our theory appears. The slackened reins of government are immediately, by the law of life, caught up and gathered together by a new hand, because the blind might of the nation cannot for one single day exist without guidance, and the new authority merely fits into the place of the old, already weakened by liberalism. Can't dwell on this, but what they're saying is make the society liberal, because that is the breakdown of morality, and once the morality breaks down, we can introduce party politics to take control. It's happening. Protocols of Zion, well worth reading. Now, Marx is in the background, and the Frankfurt School, if you don't know what that is, psychiatrists who studied how to destroy societies by twisting around with people's minds. The Fabian movement is a derivative of that, and yet many politicians are involved with the Fabian Society. They say they're about debating, but their logo is a wolf in sheep's clothing. They're telling us what they're doing. Communism, fascism, different sides of the same coin, all based on Marxist theory, and boy, do people who are psychopathic like it. Stalin, Hitler, Tito, Mao, Pol Pot, they're all egocentric people. They're psychopaths. They've murdered millions. So we know this stuff is out there, and the papers a couple of days ago were blatantly telling you that we've now got New Labour and the Unite Union mixed up with communism. And it's not just Labour, it's the Lib Dems and the Tories as well. So we are heading towards a psychopathic government. And what does that sort of government do? Well, it uses the psychiatric system to suppress people. That's what went on in the Soviet Union. Well, it's happening here, because we've now got the Fixated Threat Assessment Unit, which is a small secretive group of policemen with psychiatrists and psychologists. And if they deem that we are a threat, that I am a threat, based on what I say or think, or they think I might do, they can simply knock on my door and section me. That's the Soviet state, and yet it's already assembled in this country. So we can see that something very, very evil is building in this country. When we know where to look, we can see the evidence. You are only mentally well in a communist country if you agree with the government. That's a fantastic statement, isn't it? We're not used to this. But if you talk to perhaps Polish people or Russian people living in this country, they know what it's about. And we're starting to see it here. And if they're going to treat you, they're not going to do it nicely, because they're going to use the psychotropic drugs and electroshock therapy. It's still going on. So I'm not trying to scare you, I'm trying to show you the facts. And it's unbelievable where this country has gone to at the moment. There are a variety of networks, and I just thought I'd put some of them on the screen. We know about the Illuminati, Skull and Bones. I put them in no order because I just wanted to list some of them. But I put Common Purpose in the middle because this is a special one that interests me because it's connecting government and ordinary people. And this is Common Purpose from looking at it as in a ponerologic sense. It's elitist. We know it's dishonest because we can show where they've lied in documents. They don't have a conscience about what they're doing, re-engineering people. They're fearful. I am, well, almost a terrorist to them. They are very concerned about me, very worried about anybody who dissents against their view. People in general are useful idiots, because if you can't see what they're doing, they're going to use you. It attracts psychopaths because it's a network, it's cold, it's using people. What a wonderful breeding ground. And they select the right people. They give them a little psychometric test. And it uses behavioral modification and neuro-linguistic programming. And they become aggressive. I've proved all of this in other talks, but I just wanted to put it in this context of people who are not normal starting to be sucked together. And they believe that they're building a new world ideology and utopia. And in their twisted mind, if we follow everything Common Purpose suggests with new leaders and leading outside authority, we're going to have a wonderful, diverse world where everybody loves each other. Not. Because these are very twisted people. They're probably going to get that to their solicitors. If you read Julia Middleton's book, she tells you exactly what's in her mind. She talks about conspiring. She talks about the need for fifth columnists. She talks about useful idiots. She loves the banks. Lehman Brothers, well, they were just wonderful to her. And if you're an opponent, they're going to run you over. This is a charity talking. Psychopathic, narcissistic, sociopathic, you decide. Now, where did the neuro-linguistics come from? I've got the evidence on the screen. I know you can't read it, but I'll show you afterwards. NLP hypnosis, basically, with a few things mixed in. And a skillful operative in a room with no windows can turn people's values. Not everybody. Some it will do 100%, some won't even be affected. But across the spectrum of people in the room, you can change their values. And the thing is, you won't know it's been done to you. And if you say, I'm intelligent, I'm too intelligent to be caught, well, you've got a problem, because the more intelligent you are, the more susceptible you are, because you've got an open mind. Now, where did this stuff come from? Well, here's Dr. Bandler, and with his mate Grinder, if we look into their history, they're linked in with psychology and computers, but they've also been working for the CIA and American Special Forces and the Israeli military. And now we're letting their programs loose through organizations like Common Purpose and NLP networks. Put NLP into Google and you will find a world of NLP-trained people. NLP trainers are now talking to me because they are so concerned at what they see as the unregulated use of NLP teaching. They are starting to see people not acting normally because they've been conditioned. It's real, this stuff, and it's being pumped through society. When the policeman won't get on his bike for a photograph because he hasn't done the bike safety course, that was in the papers, a lot of people laughed at him. That's ridiculous, the man's an idiot, it's a fool. But that's not what was going on. In that man's mind, what he was doing was absolutely accurate. He was doing the right thing, and that's because his mind had been changed. Now, in other talks, I've proved that the police are using a lot of NLP in their training, and to me, it's no surprise that the police are becoming illogical, brutal. Us, the police, versus you lot. You're the troublemakers. It's being taught, and we know the roots of it, and these are not nice men. Narcissistic, sociopaths, psychopaths. I'm not going to comment. I'll leave you to think about it. Thank you. Well, here we have it. Common Purpose doesn't like me because 4 years ago I said there are paedophiles involved in your organisation, and they got very upset. And this is Matthew Byrne from Merseyside. He was selected by Common Purpose as an advisory board member to select other people. He was also, with Common Purpose's program, reaching out to children and young people. And he's recently been sentenced not only for paedophilia and gross images, but nearly murdering, I think it's 4 prostitutes by suffocation and sadomasochistic sex. Here he is. His profile was up on Common Purpose's internal website for months after the first thing had been discovered. These are dangerous people now working within a network which until a little while ago was hidden to us, the public. And this box you won't be able to read, but this man was, I'll have to put my glasses on, sorry, it's a bit of age, was called into the Select Committee on Home Affairs, and he gave evidence about the need for wonderful charities to help people who'd been abused. And he is himself an abuser. Nice. And look at his, well, I can't say friend, because that's not fair. This is a little picture of him shaking hands with Mr. Cameron. Now, I presume that Cameron's advisors didn't check out Matthew Byrne properly, but it's pretty amazing, because we can now see links between people. Are there links? Or are they all innocent? I don't know. When it gets really bad, stuff like this happens. I can't see you all, but how many people have heard about Holly Gregg? Okay, Down syndrome girl, she's now a young lady. From the age of 6 up to 16, she was repeatedly raped and abused by a gang of paedophiles, including her father and brother, a sheriff, that's a judge in Scotland, a policeman, social services workers, her nurse, other families with their children, 7 other children. And that girl has never achieved justice. When the mother tried to get justice, 8 people, including a policeman and a doctor, turned up at her flat, talked their way in, forced her to the ground, put a needle in her backside, and when she woke up, she was in a psychiatric unit. That was the start of the threats to stop this mother exposing that the Scottish elite had abused her daughter. Now, this brave lady's continued to fight, and on Sunday, a man called Robert Green, please stay, is going to tell you what happened. And he was recently arrested, held in a police station for a weekend, but thousands of people called that police station to ask what they were doing and when they were letting him out. I'll come back to that. So in our society, we cannot protect the most vulnerable children from people I believe are psychopaths, because the psychopaths are controlling the judicial system. And if you're sitting there saying, well, was it all in this girl's imagination? She's suffered internal injuries and she was given a sexually transmitted disease. So I don't think that was her imagination. A little piece of paper found under a girl's pillow. This was 2 sisters who were taken into care. They were with their dad. They were happy with their dad. And as many of the stories coming into us with evidence show, social services people, very cold, callous people, are stealing children. And she wrote out lines, I'm not going into care, I'm not going into care. And then she wrote the Lord's Prayer. But they still took her. This is going on a scale which is mind-blowing. Now, if we're going to do something, we've got to confront it. So I know the video clip of the, what was it? A game. It was a game of people blowing people's heads off. Horrible stuff. Don't really like showing it to you. But if we're going to confront evil, we've got to understand it. And I was shocked when some of this material started to come into me. And you scratch your head and you say, this can't be right. You get parents talking about their children being murdered, basically, by drugs administered to them. A new contact we've got at the moment, a Down syndrome young man who went into his normal care home at a weekend to give his parents respite, and when he came back, he was missing a fingernail and 2 toenails. we're going to take that case up. But at the moment, the law firm acting for the charity that ran the home is saying to the parents, either you accept £8,500 in damages and a gagging order, or we will dump our full costs on you. These people are... Pardon?
I said, I personally will raise the money for his costs.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The point is, this is not happening to 1 or 2 cases. It's hundreds, it's thousands. And when you see what's happening, particularly with the children, it follows a template. Therefore, it's organised, it's calculated. And when you follow the chain back up, we have psychopaths in government, in Westminster, as our MPs, and people in the civil service. So we can see that these people have grown together. How do we fight it? You've got to face it. You've got to use the language, the real words. If you're talking about people who've been raped and abused, you've got to use the real words, because if you shy away from the real words, you are falling into the trap of political correctness, which is Marxism, to stop you thinking and saying what you know you should. So you've got to call a spade a spade. Identify the other people as abnormal. So when your MP is standing in front of you and giving you a load of bull, say to him, you're on your own. We don't think this. There must be something wrong with you. Turn the psychology back around. You'll see some incredible things. Ridicule them. I'm sure Tony Blair, well, we know Cameron's really upset because the paper that I run with Mike Robinson called him the Cabbage Patch Doll. He doesn't like it. Believe me, he doesn't like it. So ridicule them. We've got to protect the children, because if we can't protect the children in this society, we haven't got a future. And that's one of the reasons that I'm here, because I thought about this, and I've got 2 grown-up children, but at the moment they haven't got much of a life because we are seeing society collapsed. And it's up to us to do something about it. I've had quite a good innings for, well, as you know, 30 years. But we've got to find... somebody's causing trouble over there. This is what evil is, because it's insidious, you see. There's one sitting over there. Right? We've got to protect the family. And that's why the family is being pulled apart. That's why marriage is being attacked. That's why we have benefits to allow single mothers to move into a place on their own. Not for their benefit, because it actually starts to destroy society. The people doing this are so evil, it's difficult to get your head around it. And then one day it clicks, and then it becomes obvious. Apply common sense. If it doesn't seem right to you, it isn't right. Common sense above common purpose. Stick together. This is brilliant. You leave this meeting and tell 10 other people, I don't know how many we got here today, 500, I'm going to say 500. So tomorrow there's 5,000, the next day there's 50,000, the next day there's 500,000. Get out there and tell the truth and use the words. Love one another. The breakdown of morality is making people suspicious, mistrustful, aggressive. And what was brilliant, and I commented on it to Carol, who drove me here yesterday, as she always does, in the dining room last night in the hotel, what could you hear? Laughter. And you go in restaurants and clubs or other places, you do not hear people laughing anymore. And yet you were all laughing, and that's because the energy in this place is very good. So don't reject people because they might be the bad guys. Embrace them initially, but be discerning. Think about them. We've got to draw people, communities, families back together. And we're allowed to rebel lawfully. This is the key bit. If you do nothing, this is going to continue. I think it's beginning to break. And most of the people I talk to in the circuit who've been doing things for more years than I have, David Icke's 25 odd years or something, but all the people you talk to are saying there's been a fantastic change over the last 4 months, 6 months. You talk to people in the street, they're saying what's wrong. You can talk to them. You give a talk, you get a better feedback. People used to constantly ring me and email me, telling me the bad things they've seen. Now they do something much better. They tell me what they've seen, and then they say, yeah, and we did this. We wrote this letter, we had a meeting, we phoned this person up, we gave them a hard time. And that's what we need, but it's got to be peaceful. It's got to be peaceful. I want to do a little plug on this. There's a conference on the 10th of April about child snatching we've put together, which is up in Staffordshire. Robert Green is down there somewhere at the bottom talking about Holly Gregg. There's also a Canadian gentleman called Kevin Annett on the circuit at the moment. He's going to be in UK fairly shortly, but he's got a phenomenal DVD out talking about the abuse of Canadian Indian children. Confront it. It is the most harrowing video I have ever seen as to what was going on with the children. And why was I interested in it? Because what was happening there is happening in this country as well. So if you don't know about this man, find out about him. And this is the key bit. An initiative which I'm going to say abroad we have started, which is we've had enough of all this stuff. But there's so many people out there in groups who are fighting with their own organizations or own little team, but you can't see it. So we came up with a concept of labeling it. So if you are fighting whatever, fluoride, unwanted Tesco development, the New World Order, child snatching, paedophilia, it doesn't matter what you're fighting, what we said is let's label it. Because if you start to label your product, your letters, your videos with lawful rebellion, anybody who sees it knows that you're on the good side. If the bad boys join, we're very happy because they're going to increase the movement. This is the thing. What we do's got to be in the open. They work in the dark. Now, already we've had people from 4 countries, France, Australia, America, and I can't remember the other one, Uganda, I think it is, Uganda or Nigeria, say this is brilliant because we can put the dove on our national flag and we've now got lawful rebellion in our country. So if you want to know how to fight the evil, we've got to say no, no more, and we've got to get people working together in big numbers. So if you look at the Lawful Rebellion site, you'll read more. Peaceful. The government's plan is violence on the streets. And I keep saying this, and I say it when I go to talk to the BNP audiences, and I'm going to say to you, I've never had a problem with those audiences. They appear to be normal people. When I go and talk to the Muslims, they appear to be normal. The government wants fractions fighting. So the most important bit of lawful rebellion is it's peaceful. You can stand up for yourself, you can say no, you can be forceful, you can use ridicule, but you mustn't use violence. You don't need to. The thing is spiritual. The biblical quote is that we battle against principalities and powers in high places. I personally now have absolutely no doubt that what we're fighting is spiritual. We have to deal with men and politics, but if you really want to get to grips with this, give yourself some peace and quiet somewhere and pray. That can be whatever you think, but basically there's a spirituality out there which is trying to bring us back onto the right path. The loud music blocks it. So go somewhere quiet and you will find you get answers to things you need. I asked for somebody to help me, a particular person I needed, and I got sent a guy called Mike Robinson, who is a Northern Irishman living in the south of France, and recently he said, I want to fight, I'm going to leave the south of France to come to Plymouth to work with you. So if you ask for things, you get given it. It's not always quite what you expected. Thanks very much.
Brian Gerrish, thank you very much indeed.
Thank
you.